Okay, thank you so much everyone for coming out. It's fantastic to see such a good crowd. Now we're going to start off with, appropriately I think, residents who experienced the horror of Rustlings Road tree, what shall we call it?
Massacre.
Massacre, the tree felling massacre last year. So I was sent a list, but I'm sorry I don't have it to hand right now. So I think there were 3 residents who wanted to speak, but any other residents that would like to tell us about what their experience was, that would be great. You're very welcome. So if you'd like to come forward, please.
My wife and I live just at this end of Rustlings Road. We retired here. This will be our last house. We retired here 4 years ago, not expecting any of this, expecting a quiet life. But no, what happens, but on the fateful morning, we are awoken, well, half awoken by buzzsaws, chainsaws, by people knocking on the door saying the trees are being cut down. I thought I was dreaming. And I was waiting to wake up, but no, this was real. This was real. I'm sorry to have to admit that I wrote to the Telegraph a few weeks before that, and I said what the council's going to do is they're going to come at night and chop our trees down. They're going to rustle our trees away from Rustlings Road. And I just couldn't believe it was happening. It was like a nightmare. And so I would just borrow an expression from today to wind this up quickly. I would borrow an expression. If it doesn't feel right, it's not right. It's wrong. It really is wrong. And the support that we've had and our heroes, Jenny and Frida and others, I just take my hat off to them. I take my hat off to them. They are so brave. Thank you.
I'd like to introduce you now to the very famous Professor Jenny Hockey.
Hi everybody, just got a few things I wanted to say. Can you all hear me? Right. Okay, yeah. Okay, so as Alison said, I'm one of the 3 people who got arrested that morning, exactly a year ago, together with Frida Brayshaw and another person who decided to help us out. Frida and I were running through the park this morning and just thinking that this was actually a great relief, and for me, you know, a great relief not having to spend the morning locked up in a cold cell without my coat or my phone or my watch, and not having to press the button to get toilet paper, and not having to sit and wait for it for a long time, not having to sit on a lidless toilet feeling anything but private. And I'm sorry if this is too much information, but it's not part of the original story. And I think the question is, what did we achieve by getting arrested? Because partly at the time it felt a bit like sort of running out on this disaster that was unfolding around us. And I've got a very clear memory of sitting in the back of the police car as it drove up that way, sort of up towards Oakbrook Road, and just witnessing, you know, one tree after another with the guys up the trees, and just knowing, you know, that microphone closer to my mouth. Okay, that way.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Oh, that's better. Yeah, just sitting in the back of that police car, sort of just flopped there really, and just seeing one tree after another that was about to come down, and thinking, well, you know, are we just sort of running away from this? When we were released from Shepcott Lane at 1 o'clock that day, there was this kind of media frenzy, you know, the press were waiting. And at the time I thought, oh yeah, this was worth doing, because what people have been saying across those 18 months of campaigning was you need to get the national press much more involved, you need to get the international press, and quite clearly we achieved that. But what I didn't realise at the time was quite how thick-skinned Sheffield City Council are, and that actually didn't really have much sense that they had that sense of shame. Having said that, I am very heartened by the fact that Stag are now again sitting down with Julie Daw and John Mothersole, and the negotiations are ongoing. And I also wanted to take this opportunity to say how hugely we appreciate all the work that's been done since what happened here a year ago, and the people that have picked up the baton and carried on with that. I wanted to say a little bit about why I think this anniversary is really important. This is a sort of personal point of view. What I find really quite scary is that I'm actually beginning to get used to those empty spaces up and down the road. And I think that that's what's really dangerous, is actually getting used to something that you know is very wrong. And I think it's when the powers that be are at their most powerful, when we stop noticing what they're doing to us, and when things are just slipping away. And it was that inspired us to put...
Yeah, just move away from the speaker. No, away from the speaker.
It's that inspired us to put notices on the tree, and if you haven't seen them yet because it's dark, do have a look, because on the saplings that were set up after the destruction of the trees, we've put notices with fabulous photographs of our lovely lost trees taken by Cole Carr from Sort, and we've put pictures of what we've lost so that we do remember, so that Rustlings Road does remember. And then finally, what we need to stick to, keep repeating the message, we need a sustainable approach to the management of the urban forest. We need to keep that canopy cover in place and not kind of, let them make the massive holes in it. And we need the tree strategy, as Louise said at the beginning. And we also need to make sure that the council actually puts the pressure on Amy to comply with their contractual obligations and to actually carry out the good practice that they claim to be. So those are the kind of watchwords. Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much, Jenny. That's really important things that you said, and it's really good to share your experience of what actually happened on that day, which is absolutely extraordinary thing to experience, being in a cell for 8 hours for simply trying to protect a tree. It just shows how far gone this council are in their determination to do something that I think we're all here wholeheartedly agree is completely wrong. We have another speaker, a resident. Luke Seed is here. Thank you.
Hi, I actually live at number 203, just behind Ellen, the tree that wasn't cut down.
Closer.
No, which wasn't cut down on the day. Like everybody else, I was woken up at 5 o'clock by a heavy-handed policeman informing me that I had to move my car. And actually, Ellen would have gone the way of all the other trees if it hadn't been ultimately for my wife, who said, "We're not allowed to stand in the area, but can we stand on our own property?" And the policeman at that point said, "Yes, that's okay." And as a consequence of that, they stopped work. The problem was it didn't stop them for very long, and then they were back to setting up a cherry picker and chopping off bits of the tree one side, and then they came around the other tree and put the cherry picker above our heads and started cutting down trees directly above our heads. And all the police would say is, "Oh well, it's not safe. I think you ought to move." Whereas in fact, what they should have been saying to Amy is, "Hang on a minute, you're not working in the safe way. Why don't you stop working?" So we've still got the tree. I'm very pleased when I look out the window to see the tree. It's unfortunately it's a shadow of its former self. I'm very sad that the local authority felt it was okay to turn up, in the middle of the night and remove the trees without us really noticing or having a chance to deal with it. I'm very sad that the police felt it was okay to turn up mob-handed and essentially sort of stamp all over our rights as individuals. And since that time, obviously, we've had to keep a car parked by the tree to make sure Amy don't turn up again, and just managed to actually get the tree down. I have been visited through the year by the operations manager for Amy, who said, "I'd like to come and discuss how we're going to move forward with the tree." I said, "It's very straightforward. You can go away and leave it alone." And he said, "But if we don't cut the tree down, we won't be able to resurface the pavement or anywhere along Rustlings Road." And I suppose if my neighbours come and ask me to, move the car and let you in, then fine, I'll do that. As it turns out, they did manage to resurface the road, though we do actually have a lovely section of legacy pavement just outside 203, showing you how it was in the bad old days. I'm very surprised, I must say, that Amy haven't been back in the intervening year to take the tree down, and I'd like to think that we could actually keep that tree and every other tree as time goes by. I am disheartened whenever I walk through Nether Edge and see the number of trees that are marked for destruction by Amy. It's a very sad state of affairs.
Not going to get them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Luke. I'm not surprised at all that they haven't taken that tree, and I think it's a real symbol for the campaign, and I hope that we can protect it until it's ready to die of natural causes. Would you like to speak next, Shafat?
Yeah.
I'd like to introduce now Shafat Mohammed. He's your local councillor here, and he was very much part of the day and what was going on, and taken by complete surprise as much as everyone else, I think.
Thank you, Alison. Well, I was walking out of my bed. I mean, those colleagues that know me will know I'm not a great early riser, but that day I was just getting countless calls from numbers I've never had calls from before. And it was the good folk of Rustlings Road who were, keenly distressed, dismayed, angry about what was happening. And I quickly, I think I had a call from Alison as well, to liaise with Alison, who's a colleague of mine. I would say we're on the opposition, different parties, but on this issue we are against what the council is doing. And I arrived here, and I remember coming through Hunter's Bar, and I was just amazed by the flashing of yellow and blue lights. It seemed like there'd been a massive terror raid or something on this street, a massive national issue. And then when you find out that it's actually Sheffield City Council, who had lost its moral compass that morning, decided to use the police at 5 o'clock and lied to the police, if somebody says, who turned up and actually basically bullied the way around this street to get the trees that they wanted. And it's the tribute of Luke and the other members of his family that stood their ground, and we've managed to save one tree. But clearly, look, this issue I thought was bad, and we made the news for all the wrong reasons. And I thought it can't get any worse, but you know what? It has. The City Council has continued along this path. It's not learned any lessons. It's took out a civil injunction. It's tried to criminalise one of its own councillors. It's threatened another one with imprisonment now, and it's just carrying on. I heartened that it started to have a dialogue with Stag, but the co-investment period is due to end in end of December. So, if it was going to have a chance to review itself, it should have reviewed its practices last year. And, I think we need to stand firm. Those trees that are still standing in Nether Edge, in Door, etc., are unique trees. The Vernon Oak, the Chelsea, the tree at Chelsea, the road, are unique, not just to this city, but this country, and they have to be saved. And Sheffield City Council has to change tack. So we, on behalf of you as residents, will continue to fight against what we think are the wrongs of this council, and I hope we can enjoy your support, and we will continue to support Stag, Sort and any other group, whether it's Millhouses, the Vernon Oak or the Nether Edge group, because that's what our role is as city councils. And I think some councillors have forgot that they're the voice of the people into the council. They're not just the council's voice out to the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheffield. I've just noticed that Natalie Bennett's been up at Kirby Misperton today, and she's managed to get back in time for this rally, so I'd just like to invite her to say a few words as well.
Thanks very much, Alison, and I guess like everyone, I've been reflecting on that day a year ago, and I remember first was I was actually on the train up from London. I think it was the 9 o'clock train, and my Twitter feed and my text messages just suddenly went absolutely bonkers. And I thought, what on earth is happening? And by the time I got to Sheffield, I'd found out. I was then on BBC Radio Sheffield immediately, and then I was here. And I was just recollecting, and I don't know if the young woman is actually here tonight, but I remember standing for a few hours on the street talking to residents, and one of them was a young woman. And you might remember, I'm sure everyone who was here that day remembers, it was pretty cold and very, very wet. And she had bare ankles. And she was standing there in the garden protecting the tree with her bare ankles, and I thought, that shows dedication. And today I've just been at Kirby Misperton, as Alison said, where the anti-fracking protectors, a lot of them are older people, and one of the people who came along today was Lancashire joining with Yorkshire, and Power came over from Lancashire to bring support. And there's people who've just given up their lives to spend their time saying we want to protect our natural world. And so I think what we've really got to think of tonight is all of the people in Sheffield, councillors, but just many, many residents who've really put their lives on hold in many ways, put so much time and effort into trying to save Sheffield trees. And I think we should all give a big thank you to those people for what they've done. And of course this is about trees, but it's also very much about democracy and the total failure of what we call our democratic process, but it's clearly not working. It's not democracy. People are not doing, the Sheffield Council, our national government, is not doing what the people want. And it's actually the people who have it in their power, in their hands by their action to make a difference, as all of you are doing now. As we've just heard from the resident, people are saving trees, and that's really important. And it's important for democracy. And it's also important on a broader scale, because I've just spent the last 2 weeks in Bonn at the climate talks. And the way we've been treating our natural world, the way we've been not caring for, not paying attention to nature, it's doing us as humans real harm, and it's threatening all of our futures. And we all know there's an air pollution problem in Sheffield. It's on the front page of the Star practically once a week. And yet we're cutting down the trees that help deal with the air pollution. And we have to stop doing things like that are causing so much damage to us and to nature. And I was on a street recently, and they're out there with their lights shining into the bat boxes. And you're thinking, what if there is a bat in there? It's not going to be enjoying that experience very much. We're doing so much damage. We're doing damage to our politics, to our democracy, to our society. But what all of you are doing, what the people at Kirby Misperton over at Preston New Road, so many people around the country are saying, we're not going to take this anymore. And so thank you very much for everything you're doing, everything you've done, everything you're going to do in the future. Yes, I'm afraid there's a bit of emotional blackmail in there. But you can make a difference. It's crucial for Sheffield today, tomorrow, and for decades to come, that we keep every tree that we can. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you, Natalie. I just want to check, are there any other residents that would really like to speak? Because you're welcome to. If you just come forward, if there's any residents would like to speak.
You'd like to say something, Jenny?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
About a year ago, there was outcry.
Closer to your mouth, Frida.
Is that better?
Yes.
A year ago, there was local and national outcry over the tactics used by Sheffield City Council to fell our trees in Rustlings Road, and also over our arrest. As a result of which, Sheffield City Council made a rare public apology over the actions it had taken, However, in the year since, their tactics seem to me to have been even more draconian, in that there have been further arrests, there have been court injunctions, someone almost went to prison a week or so ago, and things have got much worse. The combination of public political power and private commercial interests is both powerful and profoundly damaging to our city. And the most effective form of protest against that is still peaceful protest, as is being used by campaigners throughout the city, because what has happened in Sheffield is both damaging to the environment and to the community's health and well-being. Thank you to everyone who's taken part in peaceful public protest, and long may it continue.
George Davison, one of the other councillors for the Eccles Hall. I was away on the continent when all this happened, and I got the message by I got the message from the Facebook, and I read it out to the people in the hotel. These were people from all over the world. They just couldn't believe that this could happen in England. It was incredible. But I think something that somebody said earlier about political power, and naturally I'm of the feeling that because of perhaps the party that I belong to, that big majorities are a bad thing. And I think that Sheffield was governed a lot better when we had very small majorities, because the debating was a lot better. And certainly what happened to Alison Teal would never have happened had that been the case. That was the most disgraceful thing that I can ever remember. And I'm sure you're all aware that all the opposition members walked out when Alison was ejected from the council chamber. But it went further than that, as you all know, and it's a testimony to her courage that she stayed the course. And I think that we're all indebted to Alison and to everybody that is here. And the more support that we can get, the better it is. But we have tried. Of course, we've had debates in the council, and again, they've taken no notice because they could just vote us down. They had such a big majority. It's 2-1 against the opposition. So I think that we've got to get the message across that if you really want good governance as well as justice, don't have big majorities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Roger, for those kind words. Very much appreciated. And yes, we do need to vote a lot more Greens and Lib Dems into the council to balance out the massive Labour majority. But oops, I'm not supposed to get political. Are you ready, Dave? Okay, here's Dave Dillner. Give him a welcome.
Hi, everybody. Okay, if you just look across behind you over here, to your right, you'll see this wonderful huge tree. Now if you turn round behind you and look at the that's what the council call a heavy standard. That's the replacement for Delilah. I've been given the onerous task of reading out this message from Deepa Shetty, who is unfortunately unable to be here. Yeah, I'll give him my best shot. Delilah, tree 1 on Rustlings Road. That's a good start.
What a beauty you were. All of your siblings meant a great deal to me, especially Vera and her quirky little hump. But you were special. I'll never... This is going to be difficult, sorry. I'll never forget listening to the buzzing of 1,000 bees whilst gazing up into your flower-filled canopy. Difficult to describe what an arc of life you were, how your size and presence felt from all that way away. I really loved you, you know, still do. When I discovered your beheaded trunk on that dreadful morning 1 year ago, it was as if I had returned to a murder scene. I'd spent 18 months of my life trying to save you, whilst council officials played their silly games in a system I had no clue was rotten to the core. They took your life. They broke my heart. But your sacrifice has highlighted what a rigged ship Council Julidor runs, and that there are a great many issues that the citizens of Sheffield should have grave concerns about. Lying to South Yorkshire Police and the Sheffield public being just the tip of the iceberg. I'm sorry, I couldn't save you, Delilah. I miss you every day. Thank you. The biggest lie that's ever been spoken in this city is the oft-repeated mantra, we've all heard it, felling is the last resort. Now, there's only one way to describe it. It's a lie, and anybody who utters that phrase is a liar. They're a bare-faced liar. Felling is not the last resort. In very many cases, it's often been the first. We can prove this. This campaign has now become about far more than just the felling of healthy mature trees. The sheer affront, the sheer arrogance of democracy, the democratically elected party ruled to represent our interests in this city is an absolute disgrace. And the people listening to me now are not the only people who are aware of that. The almost 8,000 members of the Stag Facebook group are not the only people who are aware of that. This is something that's being discussed across the country, across Europe, and in very many cities around the world. Sheffield has made the headlines for all the wrong reasons. It's got to stop. Let's get rid of them. Thank you.
Yeah, let's get rid of them. But first, I'd like to invite someone I don't want to get rid of, co-leader of STAG, Professor Chris Rust. Thank you.
Thank you, Alison. The first thing I did in the campaign was I met Calvin Payne up here. Isabel and I went down to see him at the camp that he and Helen McElroy were keeping to try and guard these trees about 2 years ago. So it's a bit poignant to be back here. This week we've had a couple of things happen. We had an email from a lady in the Vosges region of France. She's a tree campaigner, she's fighting the local authority, and she wants the Start exhibition to come to France next year because she says that you are an inspiration to her. So Sheffield is famous for some of the right reasons as well. We've had people from Scandinavia saying the same thing. So it's because of the amazing fight that's been put up by all of you and the other people that can't be here tonight. Amazing, amazing. So you might be asking yourself, what's this thing about talking to the City Council? It's taken, I think, Dave, you were talking to them nearly a year ago, weren't you? And it was going nowhere.
Over 2 years.
Yeah, but the last time we're talking about, the last effort was, and since then we've said to them, talk is cheap, why not talk? And we reckon they have spent, I think, something like £500,000 of public money fighting us. That includes all the policing costs, it includes all the court costs, it includes the cost of the rather pointless independent tree panel. Toss it all up, £500,000 so far gone down the drain because they don't seem to believe they can sit down and talk with us. And even now they're saying, we don't get it, we don't see what you can achieve by talking, because as far as we're concerned, the only way we can deal with this is to fulfill the contract and chop down the trees. But they did agree to consider, I say consider, we're waiting, a proposal that we said, well, why don't you let us ask you questions and start to pick apart the decisions you're making and see if we can't uncover whether those decisions actually add up and whether there are better decisions you could make within the contract. And they sort of said, okay, well, we'll think about that and maybe we'll do it. And if that happens, it's a chance. I mean, it'll be bloody hard work because large numbers of people, some of them here, will have to bash their brains in. If you've done freedom of information requests, you'll know what that's like. It'll be like doing freedom of information requests on steroids. To get to a point where we hope they'll suddenly wake up and say, "Oh right, we didn't need to fell that tree, so maybe we can save it." Because as Dave says, it's not the last resort. There are trees being felled for what John Mothersole said to me the other day was clearly a precautionary reason, because something might go wrong in the future, not because it's going wrong now. So keep your fingers crossed. Meanwhile, the most important thing is the pressure on the council is astonishing. All that rubbish in the press yesterday was just, they're in a panic. They're lashing out. Take it as a compliment, because you achieved that. You drove them to the point where all they could do was vilify us. And we know most of that's made up. They'll take one tiny incident and blow it into 2 years of dispute. But that's, that's what they do. If whatever happens, at the moment they're not managing to chop down a single tree. 2 weeks, 3 weeks gone by, no trees. The last few days they've been going out pruning hedges.
About time.
Yeah, they need it. But whatever happens, we're not going away. These things have a habit of coming home to roost, don't they? Yeah. If it takes a year, if it takes 20 years, the truth will out, and people will be ashamed of what they've done. And all I can keep saying is, it's you guys that are doing it, every one of you. But the campaigning you've been doing, people on the street, all the keyboard warriors, people writing to their MPs and their councillors, everyone who's doing their bit, thank you very much, because the trees need you and the city needs you for democracy.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. Okay, it's pretty cold, and I think that probably everyone would like to go and get warm now. So I want to thank you all very, very much for turning out at pretty short notice. It's really, really fantastic you came along. And yes, I hope you all have a lovely weekend, and I look forward to seeing people out tree protecting next week. Thank you. Good night.
Power to the peaceful! Power to the peaceful!
We haven't. Oh, we missed out.
Oh, hang on.